Americans, everybody else.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another showing of the Atheist Experience. I'm your host today, Ashley Perrien, and my co-host this week, Keryn Glasser.
Hi, good to be on
back.
the show again.
And we have a guest this week, Virginia
Hi.
Glasser.
Hello.
So, anyway, we are live today. It is Sunday, November 14th, and we are being sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Crescent City Beignets on 6th Street, a couple blocks west of Lamar. Those start at 11:30 and go until about 1, 2 o'clock, thereabouts. It's open to any atheist-friendly people. If you want to come down, meet some of us, you're more than welcome to do that. Do not have to be a member of the group to come down and check everybody out. That is every Sunday, save the third Sunday of the month when we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. Next Sunday will be our lecture, and surprise, surprise, I actually remembered to print out the information on it. Yay me. Our ACA lecture series speaker for November 21st is Moon Draper, who is a doctoral candidate at UT in the final throes of a dissertation in molecular neurogenetics. He has degrees in biology and earth sciences, which encompasses a triple major, geology, geography, and environmental studies. The title of his talk is Darwin and Mendel Were Clueless: Why We Shouldn't Teach Evolution in Schools. The talk will cover molecular genetics for the layperson and a couple stories about how science relies on notions put forth by Darwin and Mendel daily. It will finish with the recent debate over the Texas textbook content and evolution. I don't know who the speaker is. It's Moon Draper, but I haven't heard of them before. I haven't worked with them or anything. So I don't know exactly what this lecture is going to be. The title definitely doesn't sound like something that we would normally do. So we will have to see. But that is next Thursday at the Austin History Center, 9th and Guadalupe. Lecture starts typically around 12:30 or so, and it goes until about 2. Other regular things that we do, this is actually some announcements that had been put off the list for a little while. We had stopped doing a couple things and they kind of went on the back burner. But every Monday night we have Godless Gamers at the house of Virginia and Russell Glasser, our other co-host. That is every Monday night starting at 7:30, and basically it's just a bunch of us get together, play board games, card games, role-playing games, anything that catches our fancy. Again, very open to any atheist-friendly people, members, come on down. If you go to our website, atheist-community.org, and write to the webmaster, they're the ones who are hosting it. They can actually get you details on when, where, and how to get there and whatnot. That's every Monday at 7:30. Also, every Thursday, we have Atheist Happy Hour in Antonio's Tex-Mex, which is a southbound feeder of I-35 just south of 183. That starts at 7:30. It's very much like the Sunday meeting, open to any atheist-friendly people, members, non-members. Come on down, pitch back a couple beers with us. The other thing, somewhat non-standard, but once a month we do have an atheist potluck. Same night as gamers. You're looking at me questioningly.
Same night as gamers.
So every Saturday?
Gamers is Monday?
Gamers is Monday.
Okay, whatever.
Potluck is Saturday. Okay. So yes, that is this upcoming Saturday.
Oh.
No.
It's the third Saturday.
It's the third Saturday of the month.
Which will be the 20th this month.
Which is this coming Saturday.
Which is this coming Saturday.
Oh, is that this coming Saturday? Oh my goodness. Okay.
It always sneaks up on us. That's why I was looking at him like I was confused. I was like, what? Oh.
Okay. So yes, this upcoming Saturday, November the 20th, there's an ACA potluck. And again, if you go to our website, write to the webmaster, they can give you details there. Also, a new thing that we're kind of starting off on the show. We will see how it is going. We very often, the cast and crew, will get together for dinner after and basically just hang out and talk and chit chat. If any of our viewers are watching and you want to come down and join us, you're more than welcome to do so. Tonight we're going to be heading out to Chili's, which is on, it's right on the corner of I-35 and 183, the south east corner of 183 and 35. The show ends at 6 o'clock. We'll probably be getting there around 6:45 or thereabouts. So again,
this meeting is for atheists and atheist-friendly people.
Exactly. We're not looking to be proselytized or converted over, cheese fries. I don't want to hear it. So that's what the show is for. If you want to debate us, bring up, debate topics, religion, that's what the show is for. More than welcome to give us a call. We'll put up the phone number pretty soon. The dinner is purely atheist and atheist-friendly folk. So that is what we're going to be doing after the show. I believe that is it for all our regular announcements. I don't believe I'm missing anything. So.
Nope. You can always throw them in if you remember them later.
Yes, absolutely. So, anyway, Keryn Glasser, welcome back to the show.
Yay, hi. Seems like it's been a while. But
it has. We changed the schedule, and I think you kind of got pushed out a little bit.
Yeah, I got bumped to the back. Sniff. But I know I have some fans out there that have been turning on the television and going, I didn't see you on television. That's always very touching for me to hear.
You have a following.
Heart to know that I have a following. They're mostly just friends of mine, but what can you do? Anyway, so I wanted to talk, in light of the recent election today, about a little bit more about separation of church and state issues. One of the main what's the word I'm looking for? Tenets, things that our organization, the Atheist Community of Austin, is built on, is promoting the separation of church and state. And this election was a pretty big deal because there was so much focus on whose religion dictates what values and how much they matter. And Bush won. And after the elections, there were a lot of articles that came out in the news. And I'm going to read an example of one of them. This is called "Church and State Boundaries Fading Away." I'm just going to read highlights from the article. This came out on November 7th, which was, I guess, the same day as the election. They had all these exit polls coming out. This one woman was interviewed saying, "Our country was founded on Christian values. God anointed this country. Attests the long-time secretary at First Baptist Church of Daytona Beach, and it's essential, she believes, to have a president whose position reflects the biblical teachings that she holds dear." According to exit polls and pundits, it wasn't the economy or terrorism or the war in Iraq that put President Bush over the top. I'm sorry. Seems to be cut off a little bit. I'm missing a few words, but in the closely contested race, it was his position on such issues as same-sex marriage, stem cell research, and the state of Israel that spoke loudest to religiously oriented voters who rallied significant enough to make a difference. Evangelical Christians overwhelmingly supported Bush. So did the majority of Protestants and of Catholic voters. Meanwhile, rejected their fellow Catholic Democrat John Kerry in favor of the conservative born-again Methodist. And although Jews remained decidedly Democratic, the percent in favor of Bush increased from 19% in 2000 to 25% this year, largely, some say, because he's a strong supporter of Israel. In swing states, including Florida, those religiously motivated votes helped decide the election. This election shows Democrats in 2008, quote, are going to have to say they are religiously attuned in order to make it stick and to make it authentic, said Michael Cromartie, an expert on evangelicalism in the Ethics and Public Policy Center. All future political consultants are going to have to understand this as part of their resume. So there were a lot of articles coming out after the elections basically saying the reason this should be a lesson for the Democrats and for John Kerry and for all the secular people out there, that if you want to have any shot at winning in the future, you're going to have to pretend that you're really religious, and you're going to have to push this to the front runner, and no matter what other issues are going on out there, you're going to have to talk about, how important gay marriage and abortion and stem cell research and all that kind of stuff is to you as your primary debate if you want to even have a chance at winning. I personally think this is the wrong lesson to take away from the election. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because it sounds like there's a lot of people out there, a lot of spinners are saying, well, Bush won by majority and he won by the largest, vote of all history and stuff, and we should use this as proof that Bush can pretty much do now whatever he wants because he has 100% support of the people behind him, and he can pretty much have free reign on whatever religious ideals he wants to pass into law. I thought I wanted to talk about the importance of separation of church and state, and I did a lot of research on the internet today, and in the past week. I wanted to pull off the Declaration of Independence. I'm going to have to say that a lot of the stuff I pulled off the internet really didn't support what I wanted to talk about, and I can talk about that instead. I wanted to talk about the Declaration of Independence, and a lot of times when you read the Declaration of Independence, people read this first paragraph, which is so powerful and so moving, and they never really bother to read the rest of it, which basically spends the rest of the article making all these allegations about King George III. And I have in the past heard President Bush II compared to King George III, but then I read the Declaration of Independence today, and it just didn't really seem relevant to what I wanted to talk about. So I put that aside. Then I pulled off, all these freedom of religion quotes from Jefferson that aren't directly from the Declaration of Independence, but just from all over the place, from different things he's been known to say and different things that he's written and different propositions that he's passed. And they're really interesting. I guess I could have given you guys that URL to put it up on the internet, but if you Google it, it's Thomas Jefferson on politics and government, and then there's this whole link on freedom of religion. They've got some interesting quotes, but again, there weren't, Thomas Jefferson basically, believed that it's very important to keep church and state separate, that there were all these religious wars that happened, and they were very bitter and very ugly, and that people shouldn't be dictated what religion they should have, and secondary to that is that people shouldn't be dictated what religion they shouldn't have, and they shouldn't really be what's the word I'm looking for? Discriminated against for their religious ideals. He did say, I've ever thought that religion is between you and your God, that it shouldn't be between you and your priest, it shouldn't be between you and your country, you and your people, or you and your friends. Your religion should be kept between you and your God. The civil powers alone have been given to the President of the United States, and no authority to direct the religious exercises of its constituents. These kinds of quotes become really pertinent, especially when we're talking about things like prayer in schools, whether or not we should have one country under God in the allegiance or on our dollar bills, and how much they should be used to dictate our laws.
He was basically of the opinion that you have the right to any religion you want or no religion if you don't want.
Right.
And so even just by having, God Bless America or something in the
on the dollar bills and the pledge.
The pledge, exactly. That's still an endorsement saying that the government slightly favors those with a religion. Now, that's still a broad category of people, but it's still not what was originally intended, and there's a good reason that we don't support any particular religion, or even broad set of religions.
So, the next thing that I did was I went onto the internet and I thought, I'm going to look up George Bush and see how many quotes I can find, direct quotes. That George Bush himself has said about all of his religious ideals and about how he's going to use them to influence our government. And
came up with a scary list?
No, actually,
Oh, wow.
I didn't. I don't know what site I pulled this off of. I found Faith in Politics 2004, George W. Bush on Faith. It's called BeliefNet.com. And I thought I'd find all these quotes about him just, sounding like a religious radical and saying all this, God has given me God has led me to have this war in Iraq, and God has given me the power to be president, and God wants me to, make abortion in America illegal, and kinds of quotes like that. But the kinds of quotes that I did find were not really something I had a problem with. I mean, I've highlighted some that
Questionable,
were questionable. But, he says things like, on God on war and freedom. He says, I believe that God has planted in every human heart the desire to live in freedom, and even when that desire is crushed by tyranny for decades, it will rise again. I don't really have a problem with that. I think that's okay. I think that's an okay thing to judge our country on,
The general idea that's being portrayed versus...
The general idea there, on his personal faith, George Bush says, my personal faith plays a big part in my life. He says, when I was answering that question, I was really saying to that person that I pray a lot, and I do. My faith is very important, and it's very personal. I pray for strength, I pray for wisdom, I pray for our troops in harm's way, I pray for my family, I pray for my little girls. That's okay, too. I don't really have a problem with that either. He spends a lot more of these quotes saying, and I'm just totally touched by how many people in America pray for me. Pray that I'll be a good president, and pray that all this kind of stuff. That's touching, too. I know a lot of people that pray that he wouldn't win, but... but apparently not as many as the ones that prayed that he would win. So
Apparently.
What can you do? It's
not trying to imply that prayer affected the outcome of the election.
No, because that's not what I believe, obviously. And basically, after the election, and this show isn't political. This show is, based on religion and atheism and the separation of church and state. But, there is a big concern about how the Republican Party has been, in one article that was actually an op-ed, so I'm not going to go too much into it, phrased it as the Republican Party has been usurped by the religious right, and how they've reached out to all these churches, and they did most of their targeting towards email lists and contact lists that they got from churches, and they were really, really pushing to target the religious right, and so it really looked in this election like they were just pushing this idea that Bush and his religious right are moral, and anybody that disagrees with them are immoral. Atheists are immoral. Secular people are immoral. We're all evil, and we're all going to hell, and we all want to, eat babies and have promiscuous sex and do all this horrible stuff, and so we should vote for him because he's not going to let that happen. And I have a problem with that. And then, after the elections, all the spinners started saying, see, this is what the people in America want. The people in America want us to, promote the Bible over the Declaration of Independence and put all this religious stuff into the Constitution. And then, of course, they started saying that after the election, this gave him this new confidence. Where's that? This gave him this new confidence that he didn't have in the first one, that it's had a powerful effect on his psyche. His governing style may change, mostly because it's a huge validation for him. He in the first election, I guess he always felt like, I didn't really win the popular vote, and everybody thinks that I was this big fraud. And, my father was president for one term and then didn't win the second term. And now that he's won the second term and he won the popular vote and all this other stuff, now he's at liberty to do whatever he wants. And he has, what did he call it? He called it political
capital.
Or something like that. He has all this new political capital that he didn't have before. And it's been very scary for me and a lot of people I know, thinking now he's just going to take that power and run with it. And he's just going to completely go off the wall, and he's going to pass all this religious stuff, and he's going to become sort of a radical religious lunatic. But when I was doing a lot of my research today and when I was reading a lot of my articles today, that's not so much what I found. And I'm a little bit encouraged by what I have been finding. I've been finding them talking a lot more about Bush wants to reach out to the Democrats. He's, I guess, giving himself an ultimatum to reach out to the Democrats. He wants to promote this idea of compassionate conservatism. His goal is to persuade the nation that that there really is such a thing as compassionate conservatism, and that Republicans can solve the problems of poverty, the inner city, and education that have long been considered the preserve of the Democrats. And internationally, Mr. Bush is determined to prove that he's not that it is not naive or impossible to try and foster democracy in the Middle East. I think that's wonderful. I'm very encouraged to be reading this, and
as much as I do agree with you that is good to hear, we heard a lot of that the first time through.
We heard a lot of that the first time. That was the platform that he ran on the first time, and of course he didn't follow through on any of it. And now he's basically saying, okay, this time for real. I think
I promise.
The Daily Show put it. He said, this time for real, I'm going to be doing this kind of stuff. But this time he's not saying it as his running platform. He's saying it after he's run the presidency, and I'm seeing it a lot of places, and I don't know. I think it could swing either way, and I'm apprehensive about which way it is going to swing. And of course, one thing that they bring up in this article from the New York Times called "The President Feels Emboldened, Not Accidental After His Victory," is that his advisors are sort of warning him that history holds a sober lesson for second-term presidents. Richard M. Nixon was forced out of office by Watergate. Ronald Reagan had the Iran-Contra scandal, and Bill Clinton was impeached because of Monica Lewinsky. If the troubled tenure of Lyndon B. Johnson is added to the list, who won a term of his own after being elevated to president when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, the warning sirens for Mr. Bush are even louder. There's a tendency after you win your second term to think you are invulnerable. You're not just king of the mountain. You've mastered the mountain, and you can often, and this can often lead to mistakes of excessive pride. And that is one thing that we're very worried about. But maybe his advisors are gonna bring that up a lot, and maybe he'll. I'm being told to move the mic closer to my mouth. I think it's being buried in my sweater, probably. Anyway. It could go either way, and I just sort of wanted to bring up the separation of church and state issue as a topic of conversation today. Okay.
I see you do have one article in there, which I actually brought out also.
Oh, yeah, I was going to mention that before.
The U.S. voters aren't so moral. Basically, there were a lot of exit polls that showed, they'd kind of bring people out of their voting booth and say, what did you vote for, and why did you vote that way? What's the most important thing to you? Mm-hmm. And it showed high numbers saying moral values is the reason that I voted the way I did, because I think Bill Clinton or George Bush is the moral president and he's the way that we should go, that type of thing. Turns out that's not necessarily the case all the time. Last week, U.S. presidential election has been described by many as one in which morality matters most to voters, but that perception may be driven at least partially by how pollsters asked voters about their priority issues. Whether voters named moral values their key issue partly depended on whether the subject was included in a list of choices provided by pollsters. When moral values was included in the poll questions, it was named more often than any other issue, but when voters were just asked to name the issue most important in their vote for president, without being given a list of answers, moral values trailed the war in Iraq, the economy, according to Pew survey. So basically, when they weren't fed the answers, that one didn't come up. Or it came up, actually, they did say, 9%. 9% said moral values is why I voted the way I did, when they weren't given the answer. When they were given the answer, then it was up around, it was very high. It says here 22% chose moral values, followed by the economy, terrorism, Iraq, and so on. But yeah, when they weren't told, it was 9%.
Yeah, it's sort of like if somebody walked up to you and said, do you think morals are important? I mean, what percent of the time do you think anybody is going to say, no, they're not? Yeah. They're really not. And it's such an open question, too, if you say moral values are most important. Almost everybody's going to say yes. And that doesn't mean I think George Bush's moral values. I think that it's more important that gays be restricted from getting married and women be not allowed to practice abortion, and that we don't be able to practice stem cell research is more important than what's going on in Iraq and what's going on with little children in this country and the poor people in the healthcare system. Those are all moral values as well. And there was another op-ed article I had where someone was just kind of ranting about, I didn't know I was immoral because I thought that, that healthcare was important, that I thought that that the poverty and the economy of our country was more important than whether or not the gay people next door are allowed to get married to each other. I didn't know that made me immoral. So, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
Sorry. But yeah, it's something that it was very surprising.
I'm going to cut in. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and put the phone number up on the board.
Okay. Yes, this is a live call-in show. Today is, Sunday, November 14th, and we will get to callers in just a very short while. But we will put that phone number up for you, and you can go ahead and give us a call, and we'll start racking them up. Okay. All right. Let's see. What else do I have, if anything of significance? We can actually go over this really quick. It's one of the stories that we had a couple of times on the show. In the past, we've had these type of stories. For a year, Julie Lacey stopped at a CVS pharmacy near her home to get refills of birth control pills. Then one day last March, the pharmacist refused to fill Lacey's prescription because she did not believe in birth control. I was shocked, said Lacey, 33, who was not able to get a prescription until the next day. Their job is not to regulate what people do, what people take or do. It is just to fill the prescription that was ordered by the physician. Some pharmacists, however, disagree and refuse on moral grounds to fill prescriptions for contraceptives. And states from Rhode Island to Washington have proposed laws that would protect such decisions.
What?
Yes, there have been laws. Now, usually what it goes on to explain is that if there is one of those laws, and I am the pharmacist and I don't agree with it, I would say, okay, I can't fill this for you, but let me get one of my colleagues. Call
That's
somebody over, give it to
ridiculous.
somebody else, let them fill it for you. It's just, I have a moral objection to it and I won't do it. I don't agree with that.
Oh boy. No, that's terrible.
Let me put a spin on it like this, okay? I'm a vegan. Imagine if I got a job as a waitress in a restaurant.
Trust me, you don't want the steak. You don't.
I went to a restaurant, somebody ordered steak for me, and I said, I refuse to serve that to you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's stupid. I've never gotten a job as a waitress in a restaurant for that reason. It was very tricky for me because I was unemployed for a long time, and I didn't want to be, getting money from the government when I could be working in a restaurant, so I babysat instead, But I don't know, if you're not going to be providing your service to people because of your own personal beliefs, then you shouldn't be providing that service, period.
Yeah. I know pharmacists that's a fair bit of training. It's not just, any slacker off the street can come in and be a pharmacist
That's
and
right.
dole out prescription drugs. It takes, there's a lot of training.
In fact, I think pharmacists know more about drugs than doctors do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And so while that is important and their judgment is important, I think, moral issues should not be involved in that. They basically are there. Again, there's something I'd like to find out a little bit more, and if our callers out there know something about this, hey, call us up.
Anyway, it can be argued that it's very immoral not to give a woman birth control when she asks for it.
Yeah. In this kind of specific case, the pharmacist has recommended this for whatever reason. Is it then the pharmacist's job, who has no prior information on this person, to say, sorry, I'm not going to give that to you? They don't know what the drugs are actually being used for, because it's not just birth control.
True.
And so how are they going to just override the doctor and say, sorry, I'm not going to give it to you?
I don't know if there's any kind of standard set, but I mean, as a social worker, there's a code of ethics, and part of that code of ethics is that you don't push your morals on somebody else, and you don't, as part of your practice. And if you think that you can't serve somebody's needs because of your moral belief system, then you need to refer them to somebody else. And I guess that part is okay. I guess if they have a pharmacist that they can refer someone to, I don't feel comfortable filling this prescription for you, but maybe that person over there can. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But I mean, it's kind of like saying, if you practice if you practice medicine, you have to take a Hippocratic oath. You can't just say, oh, well, this person is a prostitute, and therefore, I can't give her surgery because I think that her lifestyle is immoral and I disagree with it.
Yeah.
I mean,
you don't have that much freedom.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going into a profession that's a helping profession, you need to it's not right to discriminate against who you're going to serve and what you're going to serve them. And I guess the way to get around that would be acceptable might be if you know who you can refer them to.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I mean, if you were coming to the pharmacist for advice, if they were the doctor in essence, and saying,
you're not supposed to do that.
I know, but what I'm saying is, in that kind of a situation, if that were how things worked, and they didn't want to give birth control pills for whatever reason, they could suggest alternatives to everything. But what has happened is they have gone to a doctor. The doctor has said, this is what you can use. It's the pharmacist's job, I would think, to kind of go along with that. Unless it's a case where it's life-threatening and, you know, oh my God, I can see you're taking these two drugs at the same time. That's going to kill you. Don't do that. But outside of things like that, I can't see it. Like you say, if you're not going to serve meat at a restaurant, don't work at a restaurant.
Yeah.
So, and I think at a pharmacy...
Or don't work in a non-vegetarian restaurant.
There you go.
I tried to get a job at, West Lynn Cafe, and they weren't hiring.
Yeah. And I would think a pharmacist is going to be one of those places where you're going to be filling birth controls 8 out of 9 times. 8 out of 10 times. That's what it's probably going to be. I would expect.
Maybe.
I think it's a fairly high number. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's a fairly high number. So anyway. So yeah, they do have laws that are coming on the books, potentially, where pharmacists will not have to actually dole out things that they don't agree with. We'll see where that heads. But like I say, there have been a few stories on that. I think there was one in Florida not too long ago. One in Texas somewhere even. I can't remember exactly where, but I think it was up north somewhere. It was the exact same thing. And the problem with those cases usually has been the pharmacist has taken the prescription, refused to fill it, didn't give it to anyone else, and then basically the person was out of the prescription. They had to go back to the doctor for a second time to get a second prescription, and then go back somewhere else to get it filled.
That's kind of silly, I mean, if you think about it from a monetary standpoint, because there, when women start catching wind that, this particular pharmacist isn't going to fill their birth control prescriptions,
exactly,
they're going to take their business elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then, and if what you say is true, if they are filling,
a large number,
large numbers like that, they're going to really lose out business-wise. Which actually they'd probably deserve if they're going to take that,
if they're going to take that
moral
kind of,
high ground,
Yeah.
Well, so you've got your religious, eventually, I guess that's how capitalism works. Eventually, if there's a need for it, you're going to have 2 separate kinds of pharmacies, and they're going to have to label themselves that way. You can have your religious pharmacies and your non-religious pharmacies. I was working in a pharmacy for 4 years, and, for the first, 2 years, our pharmacist refused to carry, herbal stuff.
Okay.
Because he thought it was all hogwash. He thought it was all baloney, and he was like, "This is stupid. I'm not going to carry any of that stuff." Yeah. But eventually, so many people were always coming in and asking for them that he was like, "I can see that this is going to be, financially savvy of me to give them what they want," and they did. He opened up an entire herbal section, an entire row of them, and he made tons of money. Yeah. Well, and again, I think he made tons.
That's one of those moral toss-ups where, again, here's somebody who is in the medical profession who says, I have read the reports, I have seen the studies on, taking ginseng for whatever, and seen that it's complete bunk, and therefore, you shouldn't be selling this stuff to promote something where it doesn't actually do anything. And they kind of had to bend over and say, okay, fine, we'll go ahead and sell it, so is that right? Again, if you want to take the moral high ground, he should have been able to say, sorry, I'm not going to do it, and he could have. But it would have hurt business.
But again, if you're under a Republican economy, it's sort of like, well, do we have the right to spend our money on something that's basically, not going to do anything either way?
No.
Or
ideally, the education should be out there to make people don't want to buy this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, rather than are restricted from it. So, anyway, phone number is on your screen. We're a live call-in show, the Atheist Experience. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and give us a call. We have got 1 or 2 callers on the line, and we will go ahead and take them. First, we have got Eddie. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you guys?
Not too bad. What you got for us?
Well, people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol, I haven't ever met anyone who's been able to recover without having a spiritual experience.
Okay.
Everybody I know who's tried to go on their own will, using their own power, has always failed. And I was just wondering, do you all know anybody who is addicted that's used their own willpower to recover?
I'm seeing a nod from one of our crew, but personally, no. But then again, I haven't known too many people that have gone into that case anyway.
How addicted are we talking about?
Well, there is only, when you're addicted, I guess there's no human power that can ever relieve the problem. So usually that's
we
what
would disagree with that. We think that everyone has come off of it, has the power. They think they got it from somewhere else. We believe.
Well, every person, I'm going by experience on the people that I've met that have recovered.
I would almost want to put out there a question, because I'm a little bit interested in the fact that I don't really know any. I don't really know very many atheists that have ever had an addiction problem, and I'm not going to say that.
Oh, I've met a lot of them actually.
I'm not going to say that there aren't atheists out there that don't have addiction problems, but.
Well, yeah, I can tell you there's a lot of them that do.
Well,
they come into a lot of these groups beaten down.
Partly that's because there's nowhere else for them to go. There's not a secular alternative out there.
There really isn't.
Or if there are, I mean, there's very few. It's very limited.
It does exist there. I think it's on.
So there's an atheist group that extends a hand out to these people.
The Center for Inquiry has a program called Secular Sobriety, I think it is. And that offers a secular alternative to, the 12-step religious program and whatnot. How popular it is, how many, programs they have running across the country, I'm not too sure. But there is an alternative out there. Just because all the offerings, or a huge majority of the offerings right now, are religiously based, doesn't mean that you need religion to overcome drug abuse or anything. It just means
that's your opinion, whereas everybody who has recovered says that they did have to have a spiritual experience.
Sure, but if you ask me, everybody that believes in God because they need to believe in God.
Because they need.
So if everybody that recovers,
did you just say that because they need to believe in God?
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case.
Well, okay, that's your opinion.
You don't go into these rooms expecting to believe in God. You go in there to feel better, to recover. You want some help, and what ends up happening, you don't go in there wanting to believe in God. You go in there just looking for help.
Oh, I have to say something. That may be the case, but what often happens, in my opinion, is that these people are in a very vulnerable state, and it's very easy to pander religion to these folks. And
well, they're not pandering religion in these groups.
Well, that's usually usually their position is that you are incapable.
No, because they just say all you need is a higher power. You don't say that you need, the higher power.
Well,
you
need a higher power. They're saying you need a higher power.
So you
can't do this on your own. Trust me, you can't do it.
And they couldn't. That's why they came into these rooms.
Being told that you can't do it.
No, they came into the rooms because they couldn't do it on their own.
But there's a difference between, needing a higher power
on their
to
own,
do
whatever. It doesn't matter. They couldn't do it on their own.
They needed help.
They did.
And it doesn't necessarily have to come from some invisible man in the sky.
It'd be cool if an atheist experience group could maybe give these people some help.
Well, there is one.
Yeah, it would. It's secular
you
sobriety.
Just said that.
I'd like to see more programs.
But you don't even know the percentage of recovery from that group.
No, I don't.
Because we weren't prepared. Now, if you would like...
Well, then I'll call you back when you're prepared.
Exactly. If you would like, we could look up that answer. If there are any atheists out there that have access to the internet, you can call the Secular Sobriety Group, look it up, see if there's any statistics out there.
But I can tell you the percentage of people who are atheists that come into these groups that are who find recovery, who actually are recovered, that were atheists, who've had a spiritual experience and have led functional lives, being able to offer back to their community for years.
And we don't doubt that, but that's not a proof that there's a God. That's a proof that the delusion or the belief in a God can actually help you over hard times. Doesn't mean a thing.
Well, it means that they were atheists and they're no longer atheists because they felt
So they were on drugs. That's not a rational time to make decisions based on that.
That's right.
They were on drugs.
But drugs isn't their. It's just a symptom of their spiritual malady. It doesn't mean that.
Okay, so they were at a hard time in their life. That's why
right. So
religions...
they're just like people who have a spiritual malady and you like women who use men just because they're having a bad time in life, and the only way they can get through is by
Religions typically go after young people.
But you see what I mean? It's not just the drugs that are making them make bad decisions.
I understand
it's that they're having a bad time in life.
Religion goes after people who are in a weakened state.
They don't
Either very young people who don't have the logical and the mental capabilities to really, think rationally about a lot of things. They're just not at that level. It's easy to convince them of God.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to add to that we are talking right now about a vast group of people with addictive personalities. We're talking about people that are on drugs. And I'm not going to say that this is going to prove or disprove God either way. But if you're going to try and prove to me that people that have addictive personalities and people that are on drugs and people that are in vulnerable positions have been helped by believing that there's a God out there, I'm absolutely going to believe with you 100%. I believe that people that need help and can't find it anywhere else may find strength in believing that there is a God out there. Now, I don't have an addictive personality. I am not on drugs, and I am not in a very vulnerable position. And I don't feel that God has been any asset in my life and that I've needed him in my life to live a strong life. And I'm not going to say that whether or not you are in AA is going to prove either way that there's a God, but and that 100% of the time if you believe in God you're going to recover from alcohol, because that's not true either. And that 100% of the time, if you're an atheist and you don't have God in your life, that you're not going to recover. I'd like to see statistics on that. I'd like you to show me the statistics on that. But if you want us to look it up and maybe next week on the show we could tell you what the statistics that come out of the secular sobriety group are, we can do that too.
Yeah. Also, a point that came from our crew saying substituting addictions isn't necessarily helping the problem either. Saying that you were addicted to drugs and alcohol, and now all of a sudden you have your church, and essentially you're just covering up one problem in your life. Now you're not drinking to cover up the problem, you're going to church to cover up the problem. That's not solving anything. Or
maybe God helps because the reason you're on drugs in the first place is because you don't have anybody else in your life that's supportive of you. I don't know, maybe you need to turn to God because...
You've got a strong support structure there. From the religion to help you through. So,
well,
support structure is good.
Even the group of people that are involved in AA or other places that are helping people to get sober is also a strong pull for these people to go and get help because they know that they need group support from other people. So you can't just sit there and say that it's just only God or their spiritual happening, that helped them. I'm sure a lot of it came from within themselves and from, knowing that they had other people as their security net and, blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. So, it's a support network.
Exactly.
That works really well.
No, and
it does.
I can tell you that I have a family member that went into AA, and he came out being extremely religious. And I'm not very familiar with many people in my family being that religious. But I can tell you that this particular family member has addictive personality, and that's why he was drawn to the drugs and that kind of lifestyle in the first place. And that's also why he was drawn to the support system that the religious lifestyle gave him.
Yeah. Now, are we saying that religion cannot help and it's never a good thing? No, a lot of people do a lot of good things because of religion and due to religion and with the help of religion.
But that doesn't mean it's the only way.
But one, that doesn't prove that it's real. The underlying belief in God and whatever, that doesn't prove that any of that's real.
And there's no proof that is the only way to go either.
Exactly.
And the only way to get the help you need to make changes in your life.
Exactly. If that is pretty much the only offering, then yeah, it's going to be the only thing that helps.
Now, I would be interested to see if there's any kind of research study on what patterns are for atheists. Maybe atheists fight don't join groups, but they fight their way through their addictions, on their own. Maybe atheists buy into chemical ways of solving the problem, like the patch or the pill. Maybe atheists don't get addicted as often because they rationalize that it's not, not a good thing. I don't know. I'd like to see if there's any research out there on this subject. I haven't looked.
Yeah. So, well, project for next month.
There you go. I'm writing it down right now.
There's your next show.
Exactly. Anyway, phone number is on your screen. We'd love to have you call us. Again, any atheist viewers who are watching, if you want to come down and meet some of us, we are going to be going to Chili's tonight after the show. It's on 183 and 35. It's a southeast corner of that. We'll probably be meeting there around 6:45 or thereabouts after we clean up and tear everything down and get over there. So again, atheist-friendly people only. I don't want to debate religion over my burger or whatever. Anyway, we have more callers on the line. Let's go ahead and take them. We have got Cecelia.
We got back to that other guy.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, how are you?
Pretty good. I called actually to make a couple points about the pharmacy stuff and also about the election and the morality issue, but just to speak real quickly about what the last caller was talking about, saying that religion is what pulls people out of addictions is probably as logical as saying coffee and cigarettes at AA meetings are pulling them out. If you've ever been to an AA meeting, it's all about substituting the coffee and the cigarettes. And, I'm glad it's there for them, and it's not to make light of addiction, but, it just seems to me like a lot of Christians really, really, who are into religion and just constantly reinforcing it, were the ones that had, a really bad life before. And so they're just coming out, and I guess the guilt trip works on them more than people that don't have that, that have the bad life and have the bad circumstances. So that's going to tend to work on someone who has a really messed up life. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of logical sense that the religion's going to be the only thing. It can
certainly help people. I don't argue with that, but I don't think it's the only way.
Yeah. And about the pharmacy issue, also like as far as like drugs, where drugs are concerned, if someone does have a moral objection to giving someone narcotics, what are they going to say? Oh, sorry, I'm not going to give you narcotics because I have a moral objection to that. So you just have to, deal with being in pain and, go to the pharmacy next door or something like that.
And what if there is no pharmacy next door?
Yeah, exactly.
Or no pharmacy in the whole town, because there's a lot of little rural towns where one pharmacy is all you get.
Yeah.
Well, a capitalist would tell you that would be your niche market, that you could go out and open up your own little pharmacy that directly, sells only that kind of stuff because you can't get it anywhere else.
Oh, just like they whatever you don't agree with, if you're going to be a pharmacist, I know there's not a Hippocratic oath or anything, but you're supposed to be there to help people out. And a lot of people, regardless of the reason they're taking birth control pills, that's still a standard of care. There's still that medication that they need. It's absurd. Yeah. And one last thing about the morality issue with the Bush thing. I don't really understand why it's such a big deal for people to constantly have that reinforced in every aspect of their lives, because, if you want morality, go to church. If you want morality, read the Bible, read whatever that you need to. But don't follow a 50-plus-year-old former frat boy. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. That's all I gotta say. Sorry.
That it comes up every once in a while. It amuses just the heck out of me that when people say arguments like, well, if we took under God out of the pledge, and if we took under God off the dollar bill, and if we took our monuments and our plaques out of public buildings, that would be promoting atheism. And it's so any sentence you ever use in your entire life that does not include the words under God is an atheistic sentence, and any amount of empty space in the universe that does not have something religious in it is atheistic.
And I would think that someone who has to constantly reinforce it like that, like constantly bring it up, they're not that strong to begin with, as far as in their faith.
Yeah.
If they really have to reinforce it that much, if they have to have prayer in schools, and have to have their politicians as this moral, and think of all the cities in the United States that are considered immoral.
Yeah.
Washington, D.C. is probably right up there with, like, New Orleans, and which, hey, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I love New Orleans, but, it's just like...
Vegas.
Washington's not exactly a place that I would look to for, moral guidance.
Moral guidance.
It's a question of whether or not, you're the kind of person that needs an outside source to give you comfort. You're the kind of person that needs an outside source to give you morals.
There's just a bunch of sheep.
Whether or not you're the kind of person that needs an outside source to be telling you what to do or to tell you how to live your life.
Yeah.
You know?
Government's not really, or shouldn't be for that anyway, unless you're breaking the law.
Exactly.
Is probably the kind of person that's going to turn to drugs when God fails for them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, thank y'all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks all for calling.
Thank you for calling.
Also had somebody call in and give us a comment. I don't know, maybe you will actually know a little bit about this. What is the percentage of relapse for drug addiction, alcohol addiction, anything like that?
I wouldn't know the answer to that, really.
And since everyone,
if anybody does,
apparently, according to our previous caller, everyone that has come out of, addiction has done it because of their religious, standings and because of God's help. Does God abandon all the people who then relapse?
Or do they abandon God if they relapse?
So they abandon God. So, all right. Anyway, we've got callers lined up. The phone number is on. Well, phone number will be on your screen momentarily. Go ahead and give us a call if you got any comments. Let's go on to Allison. You there?
Yes. Hello.
Hello. What you got for us?
We were talking earlier about ethics and morality.
Okay.
And so I was wondering, since atheists do not have a creed that dictates their morality or values for them, what are some things that various atheists might base their ethical choices on?
Yeah.
I mean, is it just utilitarian or?
To boil it down, as a friend of mine used to say, actions have consequences. Everything you do has an effect on the world. And if that's good or bad, you will feel it. It would be immediately advantageous for me to kill a couple people, take their wallets, and run. In the very short term, I'm richer. That's cool. In the long term, though, chances are either one, I'm going to get caught and put in jail. That's not so good. Or people who know them is going to come back and, beat the hell out of me. Also not good. So everything I do...
Or people who know that I'm the kind of person that will kill you and take your money will stop hanging out with me. I will have no friends. Nobody will trust me, and I won't be able to make wise business choices because nobody will work with me. And basically, on a large and small scale, I will have completely alienated myself from the entire human race.
Yeah, and that, again, falls into the not good category.
That sounds like a very sort of Dr. Spock point of view, a way to come up with your values. Because, honestly, the only reason you haven't killed some people and taken their money is because you might go to jail?
There are much better reasons not to do it than because, a big man in the sky said not to.
Yeah. And again, this is, in my opinion, it's the difference between two different kinds of parenting styles. You've got your parents that will tell your children, go turn out your lights, and the kid says, why? And the parent says, because I said so. And then you've got your kind of parents that the kid says, go turn out, your parent says, go turn out your lights. The kid says, why? And the parent says, well, because if you don't turn out your lights, there's a risk that there could be an electrical short and the house will burn down, or it'll run up our energy bill and then I won't be able to buy you a pony next month, or, it's two different kinds of parenting styles. And I've found that...
That's not really what I'm getting at, though. Ashley, back to a comment that you had about... what did you say? You don't have to have God tell you what your values are or something. Yeah. That's not what I'm talking about. When I asked you, the negative consequences, are those the only reason why you wouldn't want to kill someone? Because that,
well,
there's something else there.
Yeah, that is part of it. The other part of it is if you're a good person, then typically people want to be around you. They want to help you out in life. They want to, give you things and do stuff for you. And so you get social benefits from being a good person, quote unquote good person. Mm-hmm. You have lots of friends. People want to be with you and be around with you and stuff like that. That's, again, a good thing. So the reason that you're good things happen. The reason not to be bad, because bad things typically happen.
I think, too, that religious people tend to think that humans by nature are bad or evil. And I don't agree that that's true. I mean, my nature is not to run around and kill people because it would make me feel bad. I don't want to hurt other people.
There you go.
It has nothing to do with God or the possibility of me getting in trouble. So, I mean, I think that a lot of religious people strongly feel that we're just bad. Humans are bad.
Yeah.
We're always going to be, naturally lean towards violence.
Yeah, but I think the reason that, and I know you're chomping at the bit, I think, but the reason that you say that you just don't want to kill people, that's not your first instinct, is because we have lived in we're social species. We like being around others of our own kind. That's how we work. The fact that we have lived like that for millions of years, we kind of have these inbuilt desires to not kill people. That's typically, when I see somebody walking around, it's not my first instinct, ooh, I could kill them and get their money. That's not the first thing that comes to mind. Because for millennia, for millions of years, that's not the way you're supposed to live. Things get really bad if people live like that. And so that's not how your brain is wired. You're wired typically to say, that's another person and, be good rather than bad.
Another thing about that is humans has this very special, evolutionary function. It's the ability to feel empathy towards someone else. Now, I have absolutely no inclination ever to kill anything at all, period. I'm a vegan. I don't wear leather. I don't eat meat. I don't kill my neighbors.
Well, neither do.
The fact that so many religious people think that the only thing that stops anybody from killing anybody else is the fact that God says no scares me, because when I turn that question around to you, if tomorrow you stopped believing in God, is the first thing that you would kill is the first thing that you would do would be to go out and kill someone? I'm asking this you. Do you think that if you found out all of a sudden that you were God, that there was no God?
I'm atheist, so I guess I'm an atheist. So.
Okay, I didn't know that. But for a religious person, then I'm throwing this out to the audience. Think about it. If you stopped believing in God tomorrow, is the first thing that you would do would be to go out and kill someone? Anyone? It doesn't matter who. Just now there is no God to tell me it's wrong, so now I'm going to go kill someone. I mean, quite frankly.
And take also all the laws away that would punish you for that.
Take all the laws away that would punish people. In fact, a doctor asked me that question, and I told him my answer.
That's scary.
A doctor asked you what?
A doctor asked me that question. A doctor asked me, why don't you go out and kill people? And I'm like, are you telling me that if you stopped believing in God tomorrow, you would just kill a bunch of people? I'm like, why did you become a doctor?
Yeah.
And he's like, because it makes me rich.
I remember I had this friend who was very Catholic, and we would talk about stuff, and so eventually I said, well, I guess she was asking me about what church I went to or something, and I said, well, actually, I'm an atheist, and she was like, oh, but you're such a good person.
I've gotten that too. Yes, I have gotten that too. People that have known you for a while before they find out you're an atheist, that's usually the first thing they'll say. But what? But I don't understand. You're such a good person.
Yeah.
I was actually going somewhere with this concept of empathy. I mean, quite frankly, I know what it feels like for someone I love to die, and I wouldn't want to inflict that on anybody else, whether I know them or not. I also know what it feels like to feel pain. I mean, like physical, like cutting yourself with a knife. And I wouldn't want to inflict that on anybody else because I feel empathy. I wouldn't want to inflict physical pain. I know what it feels like to be claustrophobic. This is part of being a vegan. I wouldn't want to lock an animal up in a small cell so that I can milk it every morning. I feel empathy towards other living species because I know what it feels like to experience certain emotions and certain physical sensations, and I wouldn't want to inflict that on any other animal, any other person, or any other species. Personally.
You're not looking at the camera. There you go.
Sorry. I am bad at that. You got to remind me.
Everybody who sits in that seat has that problem. I don't know what's over there, but y'all keep looking at it. Anyway, but I like your basis for your ethical choices better than, well, no offense, Ashley, but better than what Ashley was saying, because
well, fine,
it's not. Because it's not just because you've been socialized to feel this way or think this way. I mean, it's what you said. You know, it's
relative.
You know what hurts you, and if you don't want to hurt other people, then you do that same stuff.
I admit it's rather
so still,
a
it
dry
sounds like y'all are
philosophy.
basically doing a utilitarian approach, which seems kind of.
I admit it to being a relatively dry approach, but it's still. When you strip away all the language, it's my view that that's what's kind of left at the core. Mm-hmm. You can add a lot of things onto that, but at the core.
And I mean, to a certain extent, it's true because, I mean, I guess in the same way, if you are socialized, if you are raised to not feel empathy towards other people, I mean, if you are raised on a farm and, one of the first things you're taught is to go out and kill a chicken, and it's really hard and scary the first time, but after a while you get desensitized to it, If you're raised in such a way that you're presented with desensitizations to things that would make you feel empathy towards other creatures, then you are going to grow up to be socialized to not care.
Well, I do think that even people who eat meat can be good people, but
I'm not saying they're not. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people think that I hate them because they eat meat, and that's not true.
Well, but so do y'all ever, when you have your gatherings, do you talk about ethical questions or things? Because I went to, there's another group in Austin called the Ethical Culture Society.
Yeah.
And I tried going and checking them out for a while, but it seemed very politically bent and kind of, I don't know, overbearing. But,
when we get together, one of our largest functions is just social. And because there's not that many places that atheists can go to meet other people where you don't have to talk about God, and people aren't going to assume that if you don't believe in God, you're a bad person and stuff like that. So frequently we get together, like to go out to Chili's after the show tonight, just to sit around and talk. And we don't actually sit around and talk about the fact that there's no God and what that means ethically. Sometimes, since we are among like-minded people, what will happen is, we'll get together and we'll say, somebody asked me a question the other day, and I didn't really know how to answer it. Can you guys, back me up on this?
Yeah.
Give me some answers and stuff like that. And we will get together and talk about that. If you have a question, you're free to.
Yeah, I'll probably come and meet y'all. So it sounds like maybe it doesn't come up a lot because atheists tend to be very logic-based and science-based in their approach to life, and so it's almost just like common sense of deciding what is ethical or not.
A lot of us have been looking at this and reading about it and, watching the show and such for years, basically. And so we all basically agree on the key points of morality and is there a God and the basic arguments for and against and stuff like that. So it's not really a big talking point because, hey, we all agree, big whoop. So yes, it is very much a social thing, but because it's a lot of the people I know are very much into the logic and thinking through arguments and not, naysaying the other person, stuff like that. We do get in some very big debates. This is a group that loves to think, loves to argue and stuff like that. And so while we don't argue about whether there's a God, everything else is open field. And we get into it at times.
I guess,
but it's all very friendly and very open.
I have to say, though, that, there's a lot of females in the group that kind of like to go off and do other things too besides argue and debate about stuff.
Of course.
So I have to say, there's some of us out there that we like to do other kinds of stuff,
We play games on Monday.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I guess I'm just wishing that there was some kind of outlet, some kind of group in Austin that was maybe sort of halfway between the atheists and the ethical culture people, because I mean, I am interested in growing as far as becoming a more ethical person and, being compassionate and empathetic and all of that. And so, yeah, hanging out and playing.
Yeah. And it's all a matter of just hearing about all the different ideas and viewpoints and coming up with your own and finding out, what is it that rings true and rings best for you.
Yeah.
Mine is relatively dry, admittedly. Doesn't work for everybody. But, it's what I think is right. It's again, not pretty, but it works. So.
Okay, well, I'll see y'all tonight.
Okay.
Great. We look forward to seeing you.
All right. And again, any other atheist-friendly people out there, if you want to come down and meet us, we're going to be going to Chili's tonight after the show. That's on the southeast corner of I-35 and 183, the intersection up there. We'll probably be getting there around about 6:45 or so. And we will try and tell the waitress, somebody at the desk, who we are and why we're meeting there, so they will point you in the right direction. So.
I wonder if they'll seat us if we can't tell them how many people are going to sit with us.
Good point. We'll find out. Okay, anyway, we have got more callers on the line. We have got Mike. You there?
Hi, guys.
Hey.
I've got, several comments on a few of the topics today. The first one was about Jefferson, the Declaration of Independence.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I talk to Christians, and, we talk about separation of church and state, and they always bring up, the Declaration of Independence talks about, God in the first statement, and I point out, the writer of that is Jefferson, who was a non-Christian. He didn't believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
So if that is their proof, then basically what they're saying is that we're based on a non-Christian religion. And, where does that leave them?
Yeah. They were mostly deists.
I'm sorry?
They were mostly deists.
He was a Christian.
So. A lot of them were, exactly, yes. And as far as the pharmacist, in a way I can sort of see where if you think it's immoral to sell birth controls, it should be okay. But on the other hand, if I'm a member of the KKK and I believe it's immoral for blacks and whites to congregate together, does that mean I can have a restaurant and I can exclude blacks? Of course not, even though I think it's immoral to let them in. So I think that if you're going to be a pharmacist, you've got to sell birth controls, or else you shouldn't be a pharmacist.
Yeah.
If you can't do the job, don't even try.
Yeah.
And as far as morality, I believe in ethics of reciprocity, which is basically taught by Confucius a long, long time ago. Okay. It's basically the Christian golden rule. And like Karen, I don't murder somebody because if one of my kids had been murdered, I know how I would feel. So why would I want to inflict that pain on somebody else? I don't steal because I've had stuff stolen from me. I know how it feels. Yeah. So I wouldn't, inflict that on someone else. And, personally, I don't know of a single person who gets their morals from the Bible. If they did, they would believe slavery is moral.
Yeah.
They would believe that killing someone who works on the Sabbath is moral.
Yeah.
They would believe if a daughter is raped, that daughter has to marry the rapist for 50 shekels of silver or gold or whatever.
Yeah.
So nobody that I know of believes or gets their morals 100% from the Bible.
Yeah.
And it's just, to me, it's, when you talk to these people about this and you bring this up, they, try to spin it or whatever, but, basically they can't.
Yeah.
And, like Karen said, it's, if you cause pain on someone else, I know how it feels, and, this is something I can't do personally.
Yeah. Everybody works out their morals for themselves.
Exactly.
Just by, growing up, living with other people and, learning how to get along and what works and what doesn't. And then they're taught that, hey, the Bible says some of those things too. It must have come from the Bible. And basically don't think about it all that much. Okay, I guess it must be true.
Yeah.
Bible says that. It must be true.
I think there's a lot of Christians out there that don't read their Bible.
Yeah, not as well as they should, at least.
I know there are.
I mean, the golden rule is in the New Testament, which is basically, it's the same as the ethics of reciprocity, which is how I believe. And so those who believe that, then yes, they do get those morals from the Bible. But again, the Bible is more than just the New Testament. It's also the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of horrible stuff in there that they can't escape from.
Yeah.
But don't a lot of Christians say that the Old Testament doesn't count anymore?
A lot of them do.
Yeah, but that's where the Ten Commandments are.
Right. And also, Jesus says in the New Testament that he comes not to destroy the old laws, but to, bring them forth, basically. So they have no argument.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I had to say. Good show, guys.
Okay. Thanks a lot for calling.
Thank you.
All right, that was line 2. All right. Again, we're live today. It's November 14th, and we got about 20 minutes left in the show. If you got any questions or comments, please go ahead and give us a call. Number is on your screen. Let's go on to Lex. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
What you got for us?
Well, just kind of interesting. I sort of had a bit of an answer for the gentleman that was struggling earlier with addiction, but is very repulsed by the overt religious statements. Or
actually, he liked the religious statements of it, but
anyway. Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Well, that's how much I was. I'm sorry. Anyway, no, I've been sober myself for 16 years and in AA, and I'm very committed agnostic, and although I still kind of get irritated by all the prayer stuff going on and all the God stuff everywhere, I just use all the other elements of it and just sort of blow that stuff off and say, well, I can stand here while they're praying or not. I've actually kind of stood there and mocked it several times and decided that might not be a good idea.
So you're saying that
because, it sort of kind of offends people's sensibilities. But in any event, I've just learned how to use the support part of it, the emotional support part of it, the social part of it.
Exactly.
And just the real practical components of it. And plus, I've found some meetings, there's a couple of meetings that meet called We Agnostics that's specific to people who don't believe in God.
Okay.
And they meet a few times a week. And then I just go to really, really liberal meetings where I can sit there and say, I don't believe in any benevolent, or for that matter, malevolent deities out there running around trying to either improve or screw up my life in any way.
Yeah.
Because that would take me off the hook. I take responsibility for everything I do and say and who I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in doing that, I guess the higher power thing or whatever that they were saying you had to develop, I actually just decided that, well, maybe who I really am is so much greater than what I thought I was when I first walked in. That I actually have a lot more within me than I ever imagined, and I've really found that to be the case.
Okay.
And
yeah. I definitely feel that it is the social structure, it's the emotional support and stuff like that gets people out of it. It just so happens to have religion on top of it. People then claim it's the religion that fixes it.
Yeah.
And they kind of throw aside that you have a big social support structure there that's helping out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's...
And then there's also you need to take into account, too, the person's own inner desire to change.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happened for me when I made up my mind and made that decision to make that break. I think that's sort of what the rational emotive type psychologists would say, is that when the person makes that decision and makes the break, then they are coming from a different thought structure, a different paradigm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you can associate that with some sort of a deity or some sort of idea of some old guy or gal or whoever, like floating around somewhere who's going to deliver you from yourself and your own humanity. But I choose not to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of like living in a fairy tale. And it's great to be able to talk to people where that really doesn't particularly offend them, because when I say that to people, they get so, oh my God, you're just this terrible, awful person who thinks, has no moral compass. And I'm like, well, if I had no moral compass, I'd be raping your children, killing you, and stealing your stuff. But, I don't do that. That's not.
Yeah. Again, another important part of the ACA, just being able to go out and hang out with people where that's not an issue. Not that it comes up that often, but when it does, not an issue. So.
I'm glad you guys are out there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have anything else for us?
No, I think that's it.
Thank you so much for calling in. That was
Thanks a lot.
That was very helpful.
You're welcome.
Another thing I was going to say, when I was, if I'd followed through on my little analogy about parenting styles, the difference between the two parenting styles is, for the one family that the kid all his life has been told what he's supposed to do, and when he asks why, they say, because I said so. When that kid turns 18 and gets out of the house, they're going to go do everything that they've ever been told that they're not supposed to do. And they're going to have a lot of consequences from it, but they're going to do it because they've never been given a reason they shouldn't do it, except that they've been told not to. For the other kid, they understand all the reasons why they're not supposed to be doing those things. When they grow up and go out of the house, they're going to be very prudent. They're going to know, how to live a safe and healthy life. That's what scares me about God. All these religious people can't understand why if you stopped believing in God tomorrow, you don't go out and do all these horrible, immoral things. Which means if suddenly people stopped realized there was no God or stopped believing in God, that's what they would be doing. They'd be going out and running around and committing all these crimes and doing all this horrible stuff. Whereas the people who are atheists or agnostic or secular or non-denominational of some sort, they live moral lives for reasons other than because God told them not to. And therefore their convictions are a little bit more secure, and they're not at risk of suddenly tomorrow realizing that everything they believe in might not be true and going out and doing all this horrible stuff.
Exactly.
That's the consequence.
Yeah, I kind of worry about people who have so much of who they are built on a foundation
of I told you so.
Of religion and because of God. Because, again, start doubting that religion, then they question everything to do with their being.
Absolutely.
And that's a very scary thing. So yeah, we try and build, a basis that's outside of ourselves. It's not based on anything. It's something that we can see, we can prove, we can test this every single day.
We can relate to it.
Yeah. So anyway, phone number will be on your screen. Got a couple minutes left. Go ahead and take a few more callers. We have got Steve. You there?
Yes, I am.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm a strict agnostic, and I just had a few questions for the people listening out there.
Okay.
I'm sure the three of you will concur with most of what I have to say. I remember being 10 or 11 years old and sitting on my mom's lap, and she said, "You know what, Stephen? Jesus loves you." And even though I was named in the Unitarian Church, and we were supposed to be pretty secular, she told me this. And I remember asking her at 10 or 11 years old, "Did he tell you that?" And she had a very stumped look on her face. And she's an intelligent woman. She's not likely to have that look on her face. But she didn't have an answer, and that's when I really first started to doubt. And many of my friends who are agnostics, who always have been doubters, agree. But most of my Christian friends, who tell me I'm probably going to hell, of course, say, "You can't doubt God." And I go, "Well, I'm not. I'm doubting you."
Yeah.
People need to understand the difference between questioning God and questioning mankind and his theories, which is all religions are.
Yeah.
An attempt to either explain it, to curb behavior, or to make people feel better about why they're here, why bad things happen, why we die, whatever. Yeah. And I think it's really sad how people don't have that basic ability. I know so many people, brilliant people, who are incapable of thinking outside the box, of understanding the fundamental that if you believe in what is considered the mainstream God, whether it be Lord Vishnu or whatever, or Jesus or Yahweh or whoever, it's not really real. It's only what you perceive as real.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it real because that's what you were taught. You're not believing in God, you're believing in man because they're the ones who told you about God.
Yeah.
And I had a debate with someone about this the other day, and they said, it's ironic, my father's on the other line. He recently converted to Catholicism, and he's Jewish too. Go figure. Well, prison does many things to a man. White collar crimes, don't worry. Anyway, this young lady who's very Christian said to me, "Stephen, you need to believe. This is the way it is." Said, reading right from John, chapter whatever. Yeah. And I said, "Okay, this is a brilliant book. It's beautiful, and I don't doubt that there's some truth to it, except for the supernatural aspects. Some of them lack credibility.
Yeah.
A virgin turning babies, turning wine and water to wine. This stuff doesn't sound real. It sounds like Disney.
Yeah.
And to me, it just doesn't hold water."
Yeah. Just tell them that if you want to know the truth.
"How do you know these things are true?" She says, "It says right here." I said, "Do you believe everything you read?"
Yeah, just tell her that if you want to know the truth, go ahead and read The Matrix. It'll change your life. Same thing.
It is. And I told her, you need to question the source. Where did the Bible come from?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, no, it's not that I'm believing what people tell me. I'm believing in God. I'm like, well, where did that story come up? Where did that come from? Did you come up with this on your own?
Yeah.
You have to go back, question the source. Yeah. Ask yourself why you really believe this.
You know,
I'm that circular logic.
Exactly.
I'm Jewish, and once when I was, it was sometime around my bat mitzvah, I can't remember, it might have been a couple years after, I went up to my rabbi and I said, you know, it's very interesting to me that God is dog spelled backwards, and I wonder, you know, all these people that wrote the Bible, that saw God and spoke to God and saw these burning bushes that weren't being consumed, does it seem like it's possible they could have been on drugs?
There's a lot of parity in the desert, Karen.
And you know what my rabbi said to me? My rabbi said, well, you know, there are stories that, you know, like in the Old Testament and in the, you know, some of the rabbinical writings, that there were these special herbs that some of the high priests would use to help them hear God better.
Sure. I saw God once. I did a ton of acid and took
What's some of those herbs?
I took a nitrous hit. After 3 hits, yeah, I saw God too. But does that make it real?
Exactly.
Yeah. People aren't thinking outside the box. I knew a guy with a 150 IQ. He had a photographic memory. This is in the Navy. You know, mind you, there are no atheists in foxholes, as they say. Yeah. This guy was a